Well, thanks for stopping by. Today, we're discussing the future of IT partner marketing and channel strategy with our facilitator, Michael Franken. He has over 15 years leading strategy and marketing for top companies like IBM and Cisco. And he's always on the leading edge of change in the industry. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you.
So let's get into theme number two, standing out in a partner's portfolio. What are we going to learn today?
Well, we're going to talk about how vendors attempt to get attention from their partners for selling and promoting the vendor's services and really keeping mind share for that vendor as the partners evolve over time.
It's important information. I know you put together a great panel of experts to have the conversation. Walk us through the executive summary and what we're going to talk about today.
Sure. It was a clear view from the panelists that the foundation of partner and vendor relationships has to start with people and an environment where trust can be built. While vendors tend to focus a lot of attention on programs and incentives and details, the entire foundation of their business is really going to rest on the trust that's established between individuals at the vendor and the partner. And this involves not just senior executives, but people throughout, from the C-suite all the way through sellers and marketing and operations folks that deal with distribution of products and support. And finally, it's important that vendors and partners are always establishing a baseline for the next several months or year. As things change over time, it's hard to plan out too far in the future.
Well, let's go back and double click then on key point number one. These personal relationships, this is the holy grail, right? This is the most important part to learn today, right?
Right. And sometimes this gets overlooked as attention starts to move towards programs, transactions, incentives, and activities that are really about operations and serving customers, especially since there's been movement around different jobs, sellers moving from partners to other companies, establishment of new software vendors and services providers. The relationships that are established among these individuals at a vendor and a partner are really key. And even over time, if you think about, partners may have a good view of a particular vendor while not having direct personal experience. Sometimes it's just an impression that's established over time. For example, Salesforce has a lot of equity in their partner community, and sometimes that's without even direct experience on the part of a vendor working with that partner directly. The software vendors, commonly known as ISVs, they play a key role, and it's important that vendors remember that the software providers in their channel may be thinking about deals a little bit differently than the vendor. The vendor may see a product sale, while a software vendor culturally is thinking about a solution sale. And finally, it's important to remember that people like to work with others who care and make them feel appreciated. And that's at the core.
So I think we can all understand the value, Michael, of having a really good relationship. But how do you build that? Do you have any great examples that you can share with us?
Yeah, so there's some tenets that help to give a framework for these human interactions. To start with, it helps if a vendor and a partner both have an executive sponsor assigned for their respective teams and a day-to-day focal point. This often gets established at the initial relationship, but over time, these people move into other roles, and there's a lot less overarching synergy that can be possible because everyone starts to work in silos. An example of this could also be, if you think about services providers, there could be a relatively small firm that's dealing with implementation of a software vendor's products, but over time, that services provider grows, and then you end up having more of a program and marketing activity that's needed to reach sellers who are in extended roles. And another example would be for what are commonly known as SPIFs, or special program incentives, and for sales and also market development funds. These are often used for established players who have a way by which to incent and manage and use their marketing spend over a broad set of initiatives. Sometimes vendors think that these can be adopted by small or early and emerging partners, but that's very difficult for these smaller firms. The final thing I'll mention is an example of incentives. So incentives are commonly used by vendors because they're easy to implement or perceived so, but partners value vendors whom they can trust and who show more commitment than just paying dollars on the back end.
Well, trust. Okay. So you develop trust, but how do you keep trust? Because that's something that is waning, right? That's something that always has to be fed and fueled.
Yeah, and the trust shows up operationally in the way by which a vendor and partner adhere to standards or meet their core expectations. Transparency to partner and partner results is important. Changes in programs being announced early enough in advance for partners and sellers to adapt, as well as keeping in mind the importance of a return on investment that's attractive to the partner. The final thing I'll mention is vendors are looking these days to be innovative and show how they're creating new value for customers. And sometimes they get ahead of themselves by making changes before the partner community can absorb these themselves in serving those customers. So it's always important to balance where you're being innovative with where you're sticking with the core disciplines that you would have established up front.
Boy, this is such good advice, great information. We should take a moment to thank these top three experts for being so active on the board. I'm curious where this is going to in theme number three. What are we going to talk about next time, Michael?
Theme three, we'll be looking at multi vendor and multi partner activities. This would be where one vendor has programs to pull together several partners to serve a market requirement, or even an ecosystem where there's a loose confederation of firms who tend to serve customers around a specific need.
Oh, sounds like a great conversation. I look forward to that. Again,
Sure.
that's Michael Franken, 15 years leading strategy and marketing for some top companies like IBM and Cisco. He's always on the leading edge of change in the industry. And Michael, we will talk again.
Thanks.